I'm Beck and welcome to the worst books that I read in 2024. I've been hanging out to talk about these books because I was so disappointed and frustrated and annoyed by them, and I just wanted to put them in a video so you can feel my angst. So I will kick things off with The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake, which is the third book in her Dark Academia series, and I reread the first two in anticipation for the third book, so I thought I would love it, and I ended up giving it a 2 stars and absolutely hated it. Separately, I also have a review for it, so I will link that in the cards in the description so you can see exactly why I didn't like it. And it was just so disappointing. The characters that were set up in books 1 and 2 just seemed to float in book 3. It's almost like the concept of the book overtook the characters, and then the characters were written into the ground. It was just the worst book ever, and I'm so disappointed that I was so excited for it and that it was a third book in a series as well, and I had so much hype and anticipation for it, and it just crashed and burned. Looking back now, I honestly cannot believe that I reread the first two in anticipation for the third, because honestly, what was I thinking? I did enjoy the first two, so it's not like I could actually see this. It's only in hindsight that I recognize that it wasn't a good book. So it's such a disappointment to realize that I don't think Olivia Blake is for me, even though I liked the first two in her series. I'm not going to be trying anything else by her. I've very much been burned by this one, and so I'm calling it quits. Another one that I also conveniently have a not just a review, but a rant review for is The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab, or Victoria Schwab. And this is a continuation, also the start of a new series for her Shades of Magic set of books. And after loving the trilogy initially, I then reread them and I realized that the last 2 books in the series, I think I gave 2 stars maybe from memory, and I realized how much I disliked them, and I thought, okay, well, maybe the certain things that I dislike about the trilogy will be different in Threads of Power because we're following a couple of different characters, so it's new blood effectively in the series. No, the reasons that I hated the trilogy are also the reasons that I hate the next book as well, and it was just, again, like I said with the Atlas Complex, so disappointing because I was expecting not like amazing things, but also just decent, enjoyable things. And I honestly can't believe that I finished this book because I think I was waiting for it to get better and it just never did. And so when I finished it, it solidified my opinion of I'm not continuing this at all. And I think Victoria Schwab is done for me. I'm really nervous actually because The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is her standalone book, I want to reread that to see if I still love it because I initially gave it a 5 stars and I adored it. But now I'm nervous because it seems like Victoria Schwab, at least for me, doesn't stand up to a reread. And so what happens if I reread Addie, which I loved in the past, and I end up hating that as well? So maybe that's for 2025 Beck to decide. Maybe I'll work that out later on in the year. Like, I'm not brave enough to do it quite yet, especially on the back of this video where I feel so betrayed by releases that I thought I would like. Then I've got a book that I recently talked about in my December wrap-up, and that is a Christmas book, which is so unfortunate because I just wanted fun, Christmassy, cozy vibes, and it ended up being a romance where I didn't want the 2 leads to get back together and make up. And that's not a good sign for when you're picking up a romance book and everyone's got starry eyes and optimism. You're like, no, I feel like a Grinch because I don't want these 2 characters together. And that book is Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake. And this is a female-female romance. One of the characters, Brighton, left Charlotte at the altar way back when, and now years have passed and they've been reunited because they are friends with different sisters, and the sisters invite them back to the family home for Christmas one year, and all of the friends that go back to this family home are put into almost like a dating pool in the area, and it's like a dating games kind of thing. And so Brighton and Charlotte have to pretend that they don't know each other, that they don't have history, that they were once engaged, and honestly they just avoided talking to each other in a serious way. And I looked at them and I thought, you guys are not emotionally mature enough to be in a relationship with anyone, let alone be back together, because they just needed therapy and to move on far away from each other. They weren't compatible, in my opinion, and I think my opinion is right because they were just awful together. Needless to say, I also gave this a 2 stars. I haven't quite given anything a 1 star because while these frustrate me, I feel like I don't viscerally hate them, which is a surprise given how passionately I talk about disliking them. I'm not really sure what my difference between 1 and 2 stars is, but if I get a 1 star in 2025, hopefully I don't, because nobody wants a terrible book, but I'll figure out what the difference is, I guess. This is turning out to be a rapid fire short video because I think I'm just frustrated and passionate and I want to get through all of these books. So the next 3 are romantasy books because there's been a huge trend, like a huge upward trend in romantasy after all of the hype on TikTok. And I like Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing has been an outlier for me, but a lot of the others I'm finding just too cringe. And I feel like I read a lot of them when I was first getting into reading. They've almost got that young adult angst, but because the characters are aged up, it's also got sex smutty scenes in it. So it's like, why are you reading a smutty book when the characters are just ridiculous? I just can't get on board with that. At least Fourth Wing had a decent plot and I could understand and respect Violet, the main character's perspective and how she would interact and react to things. So that's the only difference so far. The one that I hated this year, and I got 60% into it before I went, I need to give this book up, is Powerless. And this feels like a ripoff of The Hunger Games and Red Queen and a few others mixed in. The tension between the leads and the love triangle was absolutely just terribly done. And it just felt like these characters didn't actually communicate, they just bantered. And I'm like, that's not enough to form an understanding of each other or an attraction. And I just hated the writing style so much. But because this was gifted to me, I gave it a go and I just really could not. I felt like when a dog is going to go to a vet, it's like the owner is pulling it along and its nails are like crawling along the floorboards. That's how I felt, a visceral reaction to having to pick this up and continue reading again. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. So I put it down and I immediately felt more free. And then I did a similar thing with 2 other books. So I read When the Moon Hatched. God awful book. I absolutely hate. That's probably the worst book of this whole year actually. And I similarly got 60% into it. I borrowed it from my library. I was listening to the audiobook. The 2 main leads did not have any chemistry. The main character was full of angst, but was not actually addressing anything, was just kind of being led along by the plot. And the main male character just did things and there was no rhyme or reason as to why. And the main female character just went along with it. And the main female character was pitched as being angry and aggressive and independent. And I was like, how is she independent when she's literally being led along by this dude? And then after more than half the book of absolutely viscerally hating each other, she's actually decided, oh, actually I'm attracted to him though. There was no disillusionment of her character. Like there was no blending, nothing whatsoever. It was just like stark red, stark green. That's it. And I was like, I am done. And I rage quit at 60%. And then I was like, clearly romantasy could be for me, but these ones aren't. So I then optimistically tried Bloodguard, and that almost went the same way, except I learned very early to put it down very quickly. Because in the opening chapters, we've got a guy who's fighting in an arena. He locks eyes with this princess, and this princess is betrothed to this guy that is way older than her. She doesn't want to marry him. And as soon as the princess and this random gladiator lock eyes, they have like a moment, and then the betrothed guy sees this moment and then challenges this random gladiator to a duel, and the gladiator immediately kills him because he's younger and more fit. And then all hell breaks loose. And then afterwards, or even before that, when the princess is about to arrive to the arena, she encounters this woman, and it's almost like it's starting to set up the politics, but already it's a woman hating a woman for no reason other than they're just both women in proximity. And then men like posturing against each other and killing each other because there's a gaze of a woman. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever read. And yes, the whole point of this video is that I am being dramatic when I'm usually quite respectful and level-headed, but this video deserves it because these books were terrible. And then lastly, I honestly should have known better because I never read literary fiction, because sometimes the message is just too much and it honestly does things to the characters that I disagree with in terms of the characterization and the plot. And in this case, I hated Convenience Store Woman. I thought I liked it because there were things about it that I liked, but on reflection, I actually think I really didn't like it at all. It follows a woman in her early 30s. I think she's very autistic coded, but it's never actually specified that she's neurodivergent. Anyway, she is working at a convenience store. She has been for the past 18 years because she feels comfortable with that routine, but all of her friends in the social circle that she's got, almost pressuring her and constantly querying her on when she's going to get a partner, when she's going to get married, when she's going to have babies. It's set in Japan, and it feels like those traditional expectations were very much amped up in this book. And then while she was at the convenience store, this other guy started working there, and he was just an awful human being to the point where he was stalking women, and they had a romance. And it's not like the book was saying this is going to be a great romance and then completely glorified it. That didn't happen. If it did, I think I would have actually gone to 1 star. I guess that's my line. That's my 1 star. I gave this 2 stars because I respected the journey of the female character. And I think by the end, she had made some decisions and understandings about herself that I liked, but I just did not like her journey to get there. And the fact that it included this really creepy ass man. That's all it was. I think it was like a 4-hour audiobook, so I knocked it over pretty quickly. And I was just sitting there at certain points in absolute abject horror at the fact that she was with this guy who had no job, was just leeching off her. Oh, it was just awful. It was awful. So I have very much decided that I need to stay far away from literary fiction, mostly because I generally find it boring and the messages sometimes are just a bit too much for me. I very much prefer fiction where our character can go on a journey, and I love seeing their character arc. Whereas in literary fiction, it's more like the themes are the core of the book. And this character's journey and the theme were the core of the book. And unfortunately, I just hated most of that journey. So those are my absolute worst books of 2024. And a bunch of them I can't believe that I got over halfway into or that I finished them. I don't know what I was thinking. I still put down a lot of books in 2024. I think I DNF'd like upwards of 20, maybe 30 books. So those will be in a separate video of the books I put down and did not finish. But as for the worst books, there you go. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I would love to know. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'll chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.